Hi.
Oh, Mr. McLean, how are you, sir?
Yes, are you a priest of some sort or
Do I look that way today?
yes, Greek Orthodox, I would say.
No, no. Just a big believer in the higher power, that's for sure.
Oh, okay, good. Well, that's me too.
All right. All right. Yeah, I have heard that. Uh, um, man, thank you so much.
Thank
Ladies and
you.
gentlemen, Don McLean, the legendary Don McLean, thank you so much for being here. You've just released a new recording of American Pie, 50th anniversary, 50 years, with a vocal group called Home Free. Came
Yes.
out this past Friday. And your song number 5 on the recording industry songs of the century list, longest number one song in history. You gave us the phrase "the day the music died" with this song. Such a legendary song, changed the culture, changed lives. So powerful. Tell me about this current recording. Whose idea was it to record the song again, and how did the collaboration with Home Free come about?
Well, Home Free is part of a group. They're a very successful group of a cappella singers, and there are other ones out there that do well. And it's a nice movement in music where people are enjoying hearing these harmonies and hearing them do, this kind of thing. They're good at what they do. I have worked with the Jordanaires. I've toured with the Jordanaires. I've had them on TV specials. I've toured with the Persuasions. I am an aficionado of harmony singing, and they are very good for young people. Um, they have a lot to learn too, because there's a lot of ways. I'm a big fan of harmony groups, Sons of the Pioneers, the Weavers. The Weavers were probably one of the great harmony groups because they wove the parts in and out. That's why they got their name. They would cross. Yeah, a lot of times harmonies will stack, and just go up
Hmm?
stacked. But the Weavers would cross. It was very effective, and they would figure out how to do that. That's a hard thing to do.
And I
Okay.
know they were one of your favorites. And
Oh yeah,
you have
my
a banjo from the Weavers, don't you?
yes, I own. You want to hear the story about that?
Absolutely.
Okay, when I was a kid, Eric Darling was one of the people that I called on the phone when I was about 16. And Eric was so kind and such a nice man, and he invited me to come to New York and visit him at his house, his apartment up near Columbus Circle. And so I went in. It was the most amazing day, and I went in there with my guitar, and he introduced me. We sat in his living room and played, and he had this banjo, which was a Vega banjo that was on the cover of the first album that he ever did called Erik Darling. It was an Electra record. And the banjo was the first Vega banjo ever made by the Vega company that was a long neck.
Wow.
Later on, they would make the Pete Seeger long neck. It had the fifth string peg, one fret toward the peg head, different from Eric's. Eric had designed it a little differently. It was only one of those. So I said, "Could I see your banjo?" I was love that thing, and
Yeah.
he brought it out, and it was all. He got a new one that he used. It was the same thing, set up the same way,
Uh,
same exact design. But he wanted to. He was with the Rooftop Singers then. He had a number one hit, "Walk Right In,"
mhm.
with the Rooftops. So he wanted to have new instruments, and start a new phase in his life.
Right.
Very understandable. Anyway, I said, "Could I borrow your banjo and fix it up for you?" And he said, "Yeah, take it. Take it home." So I took it home to my mother's apartment where we lived in Larchmont in this two-room apartment. And I took it all apart and I cleaned it all up and I changed everything around and I made it gorgeous and I played it. I'm going to tell you a story here now.
Mhm.
And I brought it back to him a couple of months later and I didn't, I kept knowing him until about 1966 when we lost touch. And then we reconnected in maybe 2012, all those years later,
Wow. Yeah.
because I used to call him on the phone a lot. And once again, he was an old man now, 74 years old, living with his ex wife and his friend Bill Svano, who had married his ex wife.
Wow.
And we started talking again about everything.
Yeah.
And he was 74, I guess this was 8 years ago, 9 years ago, whatever.
Mhm.
And I had already commissioned a banjo to be made exactly like the one that he let me borrow. Okay.
Uh-huh.
And unbeknownst to me, anyway, shortly after that, we met. And he came up to Maine, and Savano, his wife, and Eric, and my then wife, and myself, I took them all out to dinner and we talked. Eric was a little sick. He was sitting on a pillow or something, and he died a few months later. And all of a sudden, I got um, something from Mandolin Brothers, which they used to send me a catalog of, and there was the original banjo for sale that I
Dude.
had taken home,
Wow.
and I bought it right on the spot,
Oh, wow.
and I
That's
have it.
incredible. And you have
Yeah,
it to this day, you have it.
oh, I have it right in my house in Maine. It's in the closet, locked up.
Wow.
It's one of the greatest sounding instruments you've ever heard. If you like the Weavers and you've heard the Weavers Almanac or any of the tunes that Eric
Yeah.
sings with the group, the Weavers at Carnegie Hall Volume One, or the reunion concert where he sings Sinnerman. That's the album. That's the banjo. It's really unlike any banjo I've ever owned. It's
Wow.
the
Incredible.
Deering Banjo Company makes a great version of the 5 string long neck, though. They're a terrific company.
Did you ever think about recording it? And, even like for this 50th anniversary version of American Pie, did you ever, is it on any recording of yours?
I have thought about doing an album of all banjo songs with that banjo.
Yeah, that would be beautiful.
Yeah, all banjo songs, all these songs that I know from, Wade Ward and Roscoe Holcomb and all the different traditional banjo players, and putting it all in one place. And I will do that, but I have to practice probably every day for about 2 weeks, and then I'm going to be able to very well do that. Mhm.
And that's exciting to hear. That's exciting to hear. When you first recorded American Pie, I know it was a difficult recording session, something like 24 different takes on the vocal track and things like that. Um, did you ever feel like you were going too long? Because songs were only 4 minutes back then, the hits.
The people ask me that all the time, and nobody in the studio, especially my producer Ed Freeman, ever said a word about that. They
Wow.
were aware of the fact that the song was as long as it took to tell the story,
Mhm.
and
Definitely.
nobody said a word like of that to me.
Wow. Not even the record company.
Well, the record company just took the record and and they just boiled the song down into this little single. They didn't ask me at all and put it out, and it became number one.
It's
And
fantastic. It
and
is
that
so,
started everything going, because then they put the single out with two sides, and then they had the beautiful album with that wonderful cover.
mhm.
And everybody bought the album. Millions of people bought the album and said, "Hey, we want to hear this whole thing." And they'd call up the radio station, and the radio station said, "Well, I guess we got to buy the album so we can play this in one go." So it sold a lot of albums.
As you should. It's a beautiful album. It's wonderful, not only for American Pie. And that's one thing I wanted to ask you too. Is do you ever feel like the brilliance and emotion of the other songs, like The Grave, is just is one of my favorites on that record. Do you ever feel like those songs have fallen on deaf ears a little because of the immense
No,
popularity?
no, they haven't. Um, they're all out there, and they all have their position. They all have their awareness. You can't have everything be at the same level of the biggest thing. All that, even the Beatles, the greatest group in the world, they've got dozens of songs that are way down below that are overshadowed by, a day in the life. But they're the Beatles, so they had so many wonderful songs. And the thing about them is that almost anybody my age can sing 80 Beatles songs.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
it's
they
incredible.
can only sing one or two of mine. So, in that sense, they're overshadowed, but the songs are all there.
Yeah.
And millions of people have these albums. So, if someone owns the American Pie album, they know all the songs. They know Babylon. They know, Crossroads. When I do Crossroads in a show, I mean, people just love that song.
Yeah, yeah,
So
it's incredible.
it's a matter of marketing, really. I think, I was never very good at that, but I did the work, and the work is out there, and there'll be marketing in the future, which will take things that I've done and make things out of them that you might not even believe,
Yeah.
because we're not heading in the future uh, toward a group of artists that have any great ideas. They
Mhm.
don't have ideas. It's mostly spectacle, spectacle rock and spectacle music with a lot of wall of sound signifying nothing. I mean, if you listen to Be My Baby, which is one of my favorite records and favorite songs, it's the Phil Spector.
Yep.
That's a wonderful, simple, magnificent, perfect thing. And from the moment you start listening to it, you feel like it's a drug almost.
Yeah.
And that's the difference, because the song is there and the production is there.
Yeah.
And that's the great thing about the Beatles and some of the Rolling Stones and some of Elvis Presley. But almost all of the Beatles have that perfection. But there are other groups like the Sons of the Pioneers and Flatt and Scruggs and that are perfect also in their zone of Western music and bluegrass music. You can't beat these people. They're the
Not a
greatest
soul.
ever.
Yeah.
And the
So much.
Weavers also in folk music. You can't beat this group. I mean, I knew Pete Seeger pretty well. He did a lot of wonderful albums but he never did anything that comes close to the stuff he did with the Weavers.
Yeah. Yeah. That's there's so much substance in that songwriting, and it does touch you to the core of your emotion. Um,
Well, thank you for listening to me. I'm carrying on here, but it's important. I
a-
love harmony music.
Absolutely, absolutely. American Pie can be heard in movies, commercials, office buildings, the grocery store, just about
Correct.
anywhere you go. Everybody
Yes.
knows this song, and people have done covers of it, and uh, you've given permission for to use it quite a bit. When do you say no to the use of the song?
The Ku Klux Klan used it on a
Mm,
website. We shut them down. They're part of America, whether you like it or not, and they think that they understand the song. People like that. There are people who are very fringe, sometime who might try to use it. I don't let that happen,
yeah, yeah.
um, but not too much. Really.
Yeah, yeah, and it's beautiful because I love hearing it everywhere I go. It's a wonderful thing. Around the mid '80s, I've heard that you made a lot of decisions in your life, moral decisions about the way your life was going. Even just was thinking about joining a monastery, from what I've read. Um, how do you feel that those decisions that you made in that time influence your life today?
Well, um, a lot of things happened. I met my second wife, and we raised two children, and that lasted for 30 years and ended very badly.
Mm,
But I don't regret a thing because it took me out of where I was. I really didn't want to, didn't know where to go or what to do, and it all of a sudden we were having this experience together, and it was very productive and very beautiful. Um, Things happen with families, they run their course sometimes, and things happen with people emotionally. So I'm in a new place now, and in a place that I've always wanted to be, which is out west.
Okay.
And I'm in Palm Springs and Palm Desert, where they have where William Boyd Hopalong Cassidy had his house, and where you have the Gene Autry Trail, and Kirk Douglas Drive goes to the airport. This is where I'm. This is my last phase, and I'm very, very happy here.
That's great to hear. That is really great to hear. And yeah, I hear from all the nosy people that you're traveling the world, living your best life with a beautiful woman, and that is a beautiful thing. I love to hear that. That's great.
Well, she's a great girl, and I'm a cowboy with a Mexican gal. That's how it works.
Yeehaw. Yes, you're enjoying your life, and
I am.
that's what matters. That's what matters. And I want to respect your time. I got one more for you, and I know
Sure,
your time is precious these days.
it's all right.
Uh, you know, um, did I read this correctly? You plan on doing a world tour, not a national tour, a world tour, if
Well,
that's possible. The
I,
times are difficult.
well, I'll tell you this right now, with every fiber of my being. When times are not difficult, I will do a world tour. Um, I'm not going to tell you when or what or whatever, but I've done 22 or 23 world tours in my life.
Mm.
The whole world, every country wants me to come and sing. And I will do one last hurrah and do one of those tours, whether it's next year or the year after or whatever. I'm in good shape and I will do it.
Man, that's amazing to hear, and it's so good to hear that you're healthy and you're willing to do that for us. We love you. You
I
are an
can't wait.
American icon. Yeah, it is fantastic.
Thank
And
you.
one more thing, I'm sorry.
Sure, sure.
You have a book available on your website. It is not an autobiography, but it is a sanctioned biography by yourself.
Hmm.
Did you ever think of writing one yourself? So
You
many
know,
stories.
I don't know. I think, someday, just the way YouTube popped up like 15 years ago or something, and suddenly everything I ever did in the past was available. You could see me singing in front of Columbia University in 1970 or somewhere else in 69 and all the way through all this different stuff. I think that somebody someday is probably going to go through every interview I have done and put together a book of that as if it's a biography, because it really is. And I've really been very honest, and I've spoken about, talk to anybody about anything, but there's not a whole lot I could add. One time I remember reading an interview by Sylvester Stallone, and he is a very sensitive and creative individual and a nice person.
Mhm.
And he talked about being in his house growing up. And he said he could see in his mind still the dust in the air as the sunlight came through a window in a certain room where he used to play or whatever. Now, I love that because I feel the same way. I can remember every bit about the house I grew up in
Wow.
and so many things that happened there. But I was so impressed with him. He's known for being this, guy with knives and guns and all this stuff. And
Right.
he's really a very sensitive individual
Yeah.
to say the things that I read in this interview. And so, I think that probably, I've been talking, I've done thousands of interviews. If somebody, there'll be somebody out there, who will go and mine all this stuff, listen to everything, and and write a very good book if they want to. But I I don't really know what I would, how I could add a whole lot more.
Yeah. Well, you've been so honest throughout your career, and obviously here today with me, and I it is an honor of the highest regard. I appreciate you. You've changed the culture. You've changed lives. Mine, it wouldn't be the same. It's the
Thank you.
soundtrack of my life.
Thank you.
And we appreciate you so much, and I look forward to seeing you on a world tour.
Well, you're a very nice fellow, and I like you, and I like the questions you asked, and you will see me. I can guarantee you.
All right. Thank
I'll
you
be
so
here when the smoke
much.
clears.
All right. All right. We look forward to it. Don,
Okay.
thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Take care, sir.
Okay, bye bye.
Bye bye.